doesn't mean we like it, and moreover, it doesn't make it right.
We can now safely say that it is the Liberal Party that's the party that's most clearly for law and order in the country.
11 years worth of law and order. Where has that gotten us? Liberals have plunged the Canadian economy into a recession. Now, get this. The world is rejecting Canada. We're going to get into the world is rejecting Canada and what this all means. And instead of focusing on the economy, which is clearly failing right now, and instead of getting this amazing trade deal with the United States, which Mark Carney did campaign on as an election promise, instead of moving at unimaginable speeds we haven't seen in our lifetime, the Liberals are using their newfound majority, their new powers, to ram through bills to make life more affordable? Nope. To push forwards with the most extreme, unstudied, reckless censorship bills this world has ever seen, making Kim Jong-un jealous. The worst part is they're shutting down committees, not listening to anyone, and pushing forwards with these radical bills, while Mark Carney has taken 100 days out of the House of Commons question period. He doesn't even show up to work. Why? Because he doesn't want to be accountable to you, the Canadian taxpayer. But there is something positive with all of this. Liberal supporters, including the CBC, are now having buyer's remorse. They're actually worried and coming out and saying, wait a second, this is not looking good for us Canadians. It's better too late than never, I always say. Let's get into this report. The world is rejecting Canada. How do we know this? Well, let's take a look at some data. Here is the Canadian, not loonie. It used to be the loonie. Welcome to the Canadian Northern Peso. And if you take a look, this is the last 25 years worth of value. When it was the highest was the Conservatives up here. And as soon as the Liberals took over, we have been decimated ever since. But right now, we are at the lowest point in the last 25 years outside of that one drop is when Justin Trudeau resigned. Outside of that, currently right now, there is no point in history that we were lower in the Canadian value. This is a representation of the world rejecting Canada. If our economy was booming, people would be flooding to invest in Canada. But since our economy is failing right now, the floodgates of money exiting this country has never seen before in Canadian history. People are hitting the panic button saying, Canada is going down, and it's going down hard. This famous Canadian, Gad Saad, which is an author, also a university professor at Concordia University in Montreal. This guy's famous. And get this, he's looking at Canada, he sees the Canadian dollar, he sees Mark Carney, he sees we are failing on all fronts. So he decided to do this. 3 million views on his post following a very difficult meeting with my accountant. I just found out how much it's going to cost me in terms of an exit tax to leave Quebec and Canada. No human being in a free society should have their hard-earned money stolen in this matter. I'm genuinely numb. I'm speechless. That's right. He's finding out that the Liberals had made this such a toxic and brutal country to live in that people want to leave. You can't leave without leaving all of your money behind. That's sad. How can you leave? We have record asylum claimants. Look at the skyrocket. Canada has nearly 500,000 asylum claimants, which is going to cost the Canadian taxpayer $5 billion. Somebody's going to have to pay for all of this. No wonder Canada's famous people want to leave. Here we have Prime Minister of Canada, and instead of showing up to work or going to the House of Commons, he flies from France all the way to Vancouver to watch the World Cup. Instead of the coach giving a speech at the end of the game, Mr. Prime Minister gives a end of game speech to Team Canada. Did the team not tell the coach that he has the Carney curse? You're not allowed to see any of our professional athletes, Mark Carney, because every time you even touch a team, they end up losing.
Let me just begin by acknowledging what you're all feeling, I think, and the nation's feeling. The terrible injury of Ishmael. Blessure terrible, Monsieur Cohen.
But I'm going to save you his speech. He put everybody to sleep. A prime minister of this country should be improving affordability. He shouldn't be flying from France to Vancouver to provide this useless speech. Maybe there's a reason that Mark Carney's not working on affordability. Because to him, we've never had it so good in this country.
Affordability is the best it's been in over a decade.
No wonder he thinks you are rich. You are rich. You could fly from France to Vancouver, watch the game, and deliver a speech because you are rich. No wonder he doesn't care about affordability. He probably doesn't even look at the Canadian Northern Peso. Why? Because 91% of his net worth is located in the United States. So his net worth is going up as our Canadian Northern Peso goes down. I found a social media account and immediately followed. I think this is a great idea. It's called the Carney Carbon Footprint. Mark Carney's private jet burns 6,000 liters of fuel and emits 15,000 kilograms of carbon every single hour. Welcome to the official Carney Carbon Footprint Tracker. Let's see what Mark Carney has done. After flying his enormous jet to Paris, Dublin, Geneva, now Mark Carney couldn't even wait 24 hours before flying to Vancouver to watch a soccer match. So far in June, he's flown 13 times. The fuel burned on this trip was 6,500 liters, a total of 16,000 kilograms of CO2. I really wonder if he paid out of pocket to watch this game, or did he bill the taxpayer $100,000 for catering from Ottawa to Vancouver, and then he got a private booth, and I saw a whole bunch of liberals in this private booth. I'm sure all expenses paid. No wonder. Affordability is the best it's been in his entire life, Canada. Mark Carney calls himself Mr. Net Zero. He's all about reducing those emissions. Let's get CO2 under control on this planet. He actually thinks he's an arborist. He wants to explain how a tree is planted by demonstrating to all Canadians and everybody around the world. Let's check out Mark Carney planting a tree in Ireland, saving the planet one tree at a time.
Do you know when any good tree planting is you have to put a bit of soil.
Put a bit of soil in the ground, just like that, Mark Carney.
Well, it wasn't.
By the way, did anybody notice that the tree is still inside the pot? Look, it's still inside the pot. The tree is inside the pot. He's putting the pot in the ground. You literally cannot make any. Then he's burying the pot. This guy is such a phony. He's such a fraud. He doesn't even know how to plant a tree, and he says he's #1 net zero. Look at this. This right here. Where are all the liberals? Where are all the liberals? They need to see this. He's Mr. Net Zero and plants a tree in a pot. What the is going on? One more from Carney's carbon footprint page. Mark Carney flew his enormous jet to Geneva, then flew his enormous helicopter to the front lawn of the G7. Ironically, Canada is the only country in the G7 in a recession. The drive from Geneva Airport would be less than 45 minutes. It would emit far less CO2 than a helicopter. Mr. Net Zero needs to arrive in a massive helicopter. I don't know if you noticed, but in that video, the G7 had every single flag except for the American. All parties in the House of Commons are rejecting Bill C-22 in its form and want us to debate the most problematic parts. What does the Liberals do? We are in charge. We're not going to debate anybody in Canada. In fact, we're just going to proceed even though the entire country doesn't want it. The citizens don't want it. Nobody wants it except for the Liberals. I got to show you this entire segment. It is so important that you see what the Liberals are doing.
I will say this. We're all ready for summer, but that doesn't mean that the summer has started. There is still work to be done. There's work to be done this evening, and there's work to be done tomorrow. At the end of the day, Bill C-22 was a contentious piece of legislation. It was contentious from the get-go. Most people here have heard ad nauseum my background as a prosecutor, in which the access to data or the access to evidence was central to whether a conviction followed. I understand that. There is no doubt in my mind that lawful access is something that our House, the chamber upstairs, must address. Not should, but must. The question is how we address it. And I have now seen what is probably the most aggressive programming motion in my time here in Parliament, which is 5 years. For those at home who aren't watching, a programming motion basically tells us how and when we must consider something. So we have to get through amendments without discussion tonight. That's the gist of it. No discussion. On a bill that was probably, over 100 pages. 100 pages, and we have to get through amendments without discussion. Now, say what you want about lawful access. Like me, you may think there is necessity for a lawful access regime, and the question is, how does it look? Or you may say, I don't want any lawful access because it infringes on my civil liberties. Or you may say, I am prepared to trade privacy for lawful access in order to accede to the arguments that have been put forward by some. But at the end of the day, we are here to work. We are here to debate. And there is one thing we will not do in 28 minutes, and that is debate. The motion that was passed in the House tonight precludes debate. It precludes debate on matters of privacy, on matters that may impact the Charter. No, I shouldn't say may, that do impact the Charter, that engage Section 8 of the Charter. And here we are talking about provisions here that we will pass without debate, that a court will someday be considering. Make no mistake. A court will consider the words that we pass on paper here someday. And they will decide the constitutionality of those words. And we are expected to pass those words without debate. To me, that is unconscionable. 11 years, 12 years we've had a Liberal government. We got this motion put on us on Tuesday before we left. Tuesday, not Monday, not the Friday before, Tuesday. In fact, the Liberal government put forward a wish list of bills they wanted passed. You know what wasn't on there? Bill C-22. So yeah, I'm a bit animated here. The government said they didn't want this bill. And at the literal last minute, Wednesday night, we are talking about amendments that impact each and every Canadian. And make no mistake, on the Conservative side, we all want to put bad people in jail. But this ain't the way to do it. To have amendments rammed down our throats without debate, without discussion, is patently wrong. And yes, we will sit here at the table. Yes, we will oblige with the process. We will adhere to democracy, the motion that was passed. That doesn't mean we like it, and moreover, it doesn't make it right. What is happening here may have been duly passed, but it is wrong. And one day, in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, a court may be reviewing our words. And they may well look at what happened here tonight and talk about the lack of discussion, the lack of consideration when they were reviewing whether amendments put forward that aren't even public yet. We can't even talk about this. By the way, who breached parliamentary privilege with the Toronto Star? Who breached privilege with the Toronto Star? Am I in the twilight zone here?
They don't know.
They don't know. I think my point has been made. We are here. We are here to work. This is not the right way to work. We will do our jobs. But the climate in which we are expected to do our jobs, this is not the climate in which we were expected to do our jobs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Unbelievable, don't you think? And what is also unbelievable is Elizabeth May is also against Bill C-22. Elizabeth May.
I'm very concerned that Bill C-22, the lawful access bill, which just went through the House, what is called on division. There have been a number of stories in the media for which I appreciate the diligence of the journalists in noticing how much more frequently in this new government we don't have recorded votes on even very controversial bills. So the Civil Liberties Associations, Open Media, Citizen Lab, numerous experts in technology and privacy and constitutional law have said, don't pass this bill. We had a closure motion, programming motion. I attended I don't know how many hours of sessions in the Public Safety Committee with my amendments at the ready. Only to be, in the end, and thanks to a Conservative member of Parliament who said before we went through the programming motion and there was a baillon, the guillotine, the end of debate, said, well, maybe, shouldn't Ms. May be allowed to say something? So I was allowed to speak briefly to my amendments last night, before midnight. But it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right in my bones that a bill is controversial, establishing a new surveillance infrastructure should be passed with a committee just having a rule that says we can't debate amendments before we vote on them. And then for people in my position, that would be me and the member for Vancouver East, Jenny Kwan, with amendments and not really allowed to participate in the meeting at all.
Wouldn't it be nice if they moved at unimaginable speeds to save the Canadian economy instead of rolling out a surveillance state? And if you really want to know how bad it is, all you have to take a look at is the bought and paid for, completely biased CBC media is freaking out right now over this Liberals' authoritarian state pushing forwards with these bills like a dictatorship.
I actually want to talk about what happened this week because I think it feeds into a possible problem that the Liberals need to be attuned to. Last week, Michael Sabia, speaking at the Eurasia Group, this is the clerk of the Privy Council, talked about one of the things the Carney government has that's an asset, which is trust from the public. What happened this week is that the Liberals decided to use their majority to shut down debate and pass legislation that is very controversial, bills that were not studied, in some cases had no witnesses that even testified as to whether this was good or bad. We had the lawful access bill that has gotten a bit more attention across the country. And the government completely shut down the debate. In some cases, they even backdated the ability of opposition members to bring forward amendments, so only government members could bring forward amendments. We have never seen anything like this, ever. Like, we have talked a lot about these kind of moves during the Harper era, especially during his majority government, and with reason. I think we deserve to talk and highlight what is happening in this case. And I bring it up because the trust issue. The government House leader talked about he hoped the conspiracies around C-22, the lawful access bill, would go away, that time would allow these to pass. He talked about tinfoil hat people. This is not a way to bring people along. Okay. If anything, it fuels conspiracies. So there was no reason to pass these bills. They could have taken the summer to study them and bring more Canadians on side. And I think that they are they risk taking, I should say, Canadians' votes for granted.
Okay,
right now, the vote.
I
think right now the vote is parked in the very same way that Pierre Poilievre's vote was parked, because people don't like the other options. So I think they need to be sensitive to this.
Okay, so let's hear from everyone else then. Chantal?
I agree that it's unprecedented to find the government using its newly found majority, not obtained at the polls, to speed up or force feed 9 bills through the House of Commons. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. And I believe that in the end, it leads to poor relationships between the parties, and you never know when you're going to need help from across the aisle in many instances. But it also leads to bad legislation, because no legislation that is brought in a hurry is perfect. And to not want to hear what others have to say about this is kind of leading you into a place that you're not going to like a couple of years from now.
Last minute or so to you there, Andrew.
I'll just add a couple of things to that. One is it's playing to a certain stereotype, if you will, of liberals. If the besetting sin of conservatives is a certain chippy defensiveness, the besetting sin of liberals is arrogance. And the smart ones in the liberal camp always know that that's their kryptonite. So it's not good to be playing to that. It's not good for a guy who's kind of the top dog type, as Mark Carney is, to be seen to be too conscious of it. A little bit of personal humility and governmental humility is always becoming in somebody who is, in fact, the top dog. Final point I'll make is just as an addition to this, in terms of the trust issue, and maybe a sleeper on this, is artificial intelligence, AI. The public is really worried, really scared by this. All the polls show it. That paper that the federal government brought out talked a lot about trust, but did very little in terms of concrete proposals to try to allay public fears in this. The overriding message of the thing was full speed ahead, and that could come back to bite them.
Yeah, they would probably point to the privacy legislation as trying to build trust. I'm not saying that it will, but
in fact, it doesn't. It makes the Privacy Commission accountable to the government rather than accountable to Parliament.
Yes, and those are all bridges.
When you see the CBC panel freak out about them pushing forwards with these 9 bills that is creating mass surveillance in Canada, this means that even the Liberal voters that see CBC as gospel is watching this going, we just made a massive mistake with this Liberal government. That's it for today's report. It's bad out there. Why are they pushing so aggressively and fast on all these bills? While Canada is in an affordability crisis, if they have mass surveillance, delete you from the internet, charge you for creating a spicy meme, do you actually believe that that's improving the Canadian standard of living? Or is this entire thing in order to silence everybody so you could just stop complaining about your life in Canada because everything is perfect? Affordability is the best it's been in over a decade, says Mark Carney. And if you try to question that after these bad bills are approved, you are no longer going to participate on the internet. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. I'll see you on the next report.